In western New York, Joseph Smith claimed an angel revealed golden plates containing the history of an ancient American people. These plates, he said, were the Word of God, but translating them required money, faith, and sacrifice. Enter Martin Harris, a prosperous farmer and Smith's first major supporter. Harris believed in Smith's mission so deeply that he mortgaged his farm to fund the printing of the Book of Mormon. This was a massive risk. If the book failed, Harris would lose everything. Harris, desperate for reassurance, was allowed to take 116 pages of the manuscript to show his wife. Disaster struck. The pages vanished. In 1830, the Book of Mormon was published. Harris sold part of his farm to pay the printer's bill, keeping his promise, but losing his wife and much of his wealth. The church was born from this transaction, founded on faith and high-stakes financial gambles. Money was not just a tool, it was a testament of devotion. The early church's survival depended on the willingness of its followers to risk everything. The faith of a few, and the money of one, launched a movement that would reshape American religion. And from that moment, money and faith would walk hand in hand. Joseph Smith was more than a prophet. He was a builder who knew a spiritual kingdom needed a physical foundation. As his followers grew, he led them west to Kirtland, Missouri, then Nauvoo. Each city was both a religious community and an economic experiment. Smith instructed followers to consecrate their property to the church, creating a communal system. He founded the Kirtland Safety Society, a bank meant to finance growth, but it collapsed in the Panic of 1837. Accusations of fraud forced Smith to flee Ohio. In Nauvoo, Smith built a new city where spiritual and temporal power were one. Smith was the absolute ruler of a theocratic city-state. This fusion of faith, finance, and force would define the church for generations. The failures and successes of these early experiments shaped the church's future approach to money and power. Smith's legacy was a blueprint for a church that would always blend faith with finance. The church would always be both a faith and an enterprise. After Joseph Smith's murder, Brigham Young emerged as leader, guiding the saints west to the Great Salt Lake Valley. The trek was a massive logistical and financial challenge. Thousands crossed 1,300 miles of wilderness. Wealthier members funded the journey for the poor. Survival depended on collective effort and absolute control. In the desert, Young became governor, prophet, and economic planner. He dictated settlements, crops, and controlled water, the valley's most precious resource. The church owned key businesses and ran tithing houses where members brought a tenth of their produce. This was a theocratic command economy designed for survival and growth. Individual prosperity was secondary to the needs of Zion. The discovery of gold in California brought both opportunity and threat. Young feared a gold rush would lure saints away, but he needed the capital. He sent missions to the gold fields, not to get rich, but to gather gold for the church. The gold funded immigration, minted coins, and built infrastructure. It was a calculated move harness outside wealth to build an isolated kingdom. The saints' survival in the desert was a testament to discipline and unity. The church's economic system ensured no one starved, but also demanded total loyalty. Brigham Young's rule was absolute. Faith and finance were inseparable. The desert experiment proved the church could thrive against all odds. The lessons of scarcity and control would shape Mormon economics for generations. Zion in the desert was built on sacrifice, cooperation, and a relentless drive for self-sufficiency. The church's command economy was both shield and sword. In the wilderness, the saints forged a new identity, one where faith and finance were two sides of the same coin. The desert was harsh, but it made the church strong. The Mormons found sanctuary in Utah but soon faced new threats as the territory was absorbed by the United States. Federal officials arrived, clashing with Brigham Young's theocratic rule. In 1857, President Buchanan sent an army to install a non-Mormon governor, sparking the Utah War. Fear and paranoia gripped Mormon settlements. Young declared martial law and urged defiance. In this tense climate, the Mountain Meadows Massacre occurred. Local Mormon leaders, with Paiute allies, slaughtered a wagon train of emigrants after promising safe passage. Over 120 men, women, and children were killed. Only the youngest survived. For years, the church blamed the Paiutes, but the truth emerged. It was planned by local Mormon leaders, driven by obedience and fear. The massacre stands as a brutal reminder of the dangers of absolute power and isolation. When faith becomes entangled with paranoia, tragedy can follow. The price of building a kingdom apart was steep. The church's history is marked by both resilience and dark chapters. The events in Utah revealed the risks of unchecked authority. The legacy of the massacre is a warning about the cost of mixing faith, fear, and power. The saints survived, but the scars remained. The lesson: power, when unchecked, can corrupt even the most devout. Brigham Young was a master colonizer and a shrewd businessman. He believed economic independence was essential for spiritual survival. To shield his people from outside influence, he built a closed economic system. Church-owned businesses dominated Utah. The centerpiece was Zion's Cooperative Mercantile Institution, ZCMI, a massive cooperative meant to drive out non-Mormon competitors. Shopping at ZCMI became a religious duty. The church became the West's largest landowner, controlling ranches, water, and mines. Young, as trustee and trust, held all assets. His wealth and the church's were one. This concentration of power allowed the church to build temples and fund immigration. But it also created a rigid hierarchy. Leaders controlled wealth, members tithed and worked. Zion was both a faith community and a powerful corporation. The prophet was its CEO. Economic power built the kingdom but also shaped its culture. The church's commercial empire was as much about control as survival. In the late 1800s, the federal government targeted the Mormon Church, using anti-polygamy laws to dismantle its power. The Edmunds-Tucker Act disincorporated the church and seized its assets. Temples, tithing houses, and businesses were confiscated. Leaders went into hiding. The church faced bankruptcy and extinction. In 1890, President Wilford Woodruff issued the Manifesto ending new plural marriages, a strategic retreat to save the church. Utah gained statehood and confiscated property was returned. The crisis taught two lessons: avoid debt and embrace secrecy. The church adopted a strict pay-as-you-go policy. No new buildings without cash in hand. More importantly, it stopped publishing financial statements. Leaders realized transparency made them targets. From then on, church finances became a closely guarded secret. Only a handful at the top knew the true extent of its wealth. The era of public financial disclosure was over. Secrecy became a shield against outside threats. The church's survival depended on discretion and discipline. The scars of federal persecution shaped its financial culture for generations. The kingdom would never again risk everything in the open. The 20th century transformed the Mormon Church from a persecuted sect to a global institution. Its financial strategy evolved, no longer just farms and factories but stocks, bonds, and corporate investments. N. Eldon Tanner, a business-minded leader, professionalized church finances and separated ecclesiastical and commercial operations. The church built a network of for-profit corporations, managed by professionals, to generate revenue and protect its future. It owned media, insurance, agriculture, and real estate, including the billion-dollar City Creek Center Mall. But the most significant change was hidden: the creation of a secret investment fund. As tithing revenues soared, surplus funds were invested by Ensign Peak Advisors, a confidential entity founded in 1997. Most members had no idea it existed. The fund's purpose: to grow the church's surplus wealth as a financial fortress. The scale became enormous. Billions quietly invested for a rainy day. The church's financial empire was now global, sophisticated, and secretive. Leaders saw this as prudent stewardship. Critics wondered about transparency and priorities. The church's transformation was complete. Prophets had become portfolio managers. Faith and finance were more intertwined than ever. The legacy of secrecy and investment would soon face a reckoning. In 2019, the secret of Ensign Peak Advisors was exposed by whistleblower David Nielsen, a senior portfolio manager. He revealed the fund had grown to over $100 billion, all from surplus tithing held in secrecy. Nielsen alleged the fund wasn't used for charity but simply accumulated wealth. He filed a complaint with the IRS claiming the church misled members about their donations. The story broke in the Washington Post, shocking members and the public. The SEC investigated, discovering the church used shell companies to hide its portfolio's true size. In 2023, the church and Ensign Peak paid a $5 million penalty for violating federal law. The SEC said the church hid its investments to avoid negative consequences like a decline in tithing. The church admitted no wrongdoing but settled the case. For many members, trust was shaken. They had believed in transparency and stewardship. Now, federal authorities confirmed deliberate concealment of vast wealth. The foundation of trust was cracked. The church's culture of secrecy faced unprecedented scrutiny. The era of hidden finances was over. The Ensign Peak revelations ignited a debate at the heart of Mormonism. The church claims a mission of charity and spiritual service, but its reserve fund dwarfs its humanitarian spending. Critics ask, with over $100 billion in reserves, is the church doing enough for the needy? Why require tithing from the poor when investment returns alone could fund vast aid? The church's dual identity, as faith and corporation, creates tension. Secrecy, once a shield, is now a source of controversy. The story of Mormon finance is a story of American faith, ambition, and the pursuit of security. From a mortgaged farm to a global powerhouse, the church's journey is remarkable. But its success comes with unresolved conflict between sacred mission and hidden power. How the church navigates this will define its future, and the faith of millions. The question remains, can faith and fortune truly coexist?